What if all the anxiety you're feeling, the disconnection, the feelings of dread, loss that you're going through after embarking on this glow up journey, this self evolution journey? What if all the feelings that you're having isn't an indicator that something's wrong with you, but that you no longer are on the same frequency as those things? See, when you begin to evolve, something that is not often talked about, I'm going to say the quiet part out loud, is that when you do evolve, the indicator to that is what you used to connect to, what used to bring you joy, what used to be the happy place can't. In order for you to have a new reality, you have to lose access and lose everything that is around the old. So you wake up, you turn over to your husband or your girlfriend or wife. You get up, you start your day, you get your coffee, you may read the newspaper, you may scroll on Instagram. You get yourself ready for work, and all the same things that you've done day in, day out for the last several years or decades, for whatever reason, has lost that particular sparkle. You may start Googling things like, am I having a nervous breakdown? Am I dissociating? What's wrong with me? Am I burnt out? What is wrong? There is a word for it. And over the next 25 minutes or so in this podcast, you're going to get what that is. But I'm going to let you know just a little hint that it is not what you think it is. You've done everything that you were supposed to do the right. You went to school, you got good grades, you got the job, you've elevated, you've suppressed, you've done all the things that you were told to do. And so I want to be very clear that there is nothing wrong with you and that you weren't wrong for what you did. If anything, what it is conceptually is that you, my dear, have sincerely did the thing in the most brilliant way, which is you were successful at pivoting your life. You wanted to embark on a glow up journey. Well, you did it. You glowed up. But no one tells you what's behind the curtain of the glow up. So you've not done anything wrong. You've actually done everything right. And that's what terrifies you. So I want to walk through a few things that you can kind of see how this plays out in your life. So one of those could be your friendships that you once really were true to you, that you fought for, that you were there, like you were 10 toes down for those people. And now these friendships are starting to fade and you do not have the desire. There's nothing in you motivating you to try to fight for that relationship. This also can apply to your marriage, relationships long term, like anything, family, any sort of relationship, but friendships especially, because we really derive our lives around those. And so when we get to a point where, hey, we're embarking on this journey, you may begin to feel this disconnection, but there isn't any drive for you to try to make it work. If anything, you're hoping that it just kind of fades and disappears. The same thing goes for your job. You have been the one who came in early, stayed late, worked on weekends, volunteered, did whatever was necessary for the job. You took on certifications, you did extra work when there was a layoff. You did everything that you were supposed to do. And you used to feel so good about the work that you were doing because you knew that if you just kept doing it, it would eventually get you to the shiny corporate office, the nice salary, and all the emotional flattery that you could have. However, now waking up in the morning, you are simply dejected by the thought of having to pull that computer out and send an email. The thing that took you 2 seconds before some years ago now takes you 20 million years, it feels like, to actually get into motion. You have this inability to be able to explain what you're feeling without having these waves and gut punches of feeling ungrateful, that you're being dramatic. You feel like you just need to white knuckle it through to continue having the life you have, because to the outside world, you have it all. You have the nice house, the kids, the nice car, you go on vacations, like you're really cute for the gram. You have the job that many idolize and wish that they could be in, or maybe you've pivoted already and started a business and it is, flourishing. But unfortunately, you feel this immense amount of shame and guilt that you desire something different. Something that is not often said is that when you are awakening and you're doing these journeys, these initiations truly, the thing that no one discusses is that you will die to the old in order for you to go into the new. You can't go up with the heaviness of what was on the other level that you currently were on. And now that you've evolved, like you have to like teeter away from those things in order for you to move forward and to move higher. And this is very uncomfortable, but no one discusses this. And I think it is a actual very poor job on those that have enlightenment and have evolved, because it can make you feel as though something is really, really dreadfully wrong. But if anything, actually, it is the indicator that you have done it correctly. Because see, if you were still able to connect with the same stuff that you've always done and think that you're going to another level, then that would be the indicator that actually you have done something wrong. Something has not gone the way that you planned for it. When we put in our petitions, our manifestations, we see our affirmations, we are holding this frequency at a certain level for a time. Things will eventually become into the material world. And in order for those things to have space, other things have to no longer be good. One of the things I have seen a few times lately is this kind of law of repulsiveness. So as you evolve, so does the things that you find appealing, the things that really align with you, but that also means things that no longer hit the frequency. They no longer give you that scratch, that itch. They become repulsive. That's why one day you may wake up, you've been married to this man for 20 years and you wake up and you're like, oh my God, disgusting, ugh, yuck. Because there's a law of repulsion. There's nothing wrong with the individual and its conceptualness, but it is wrong for you. And I don't even want to say wrong because it has such a negative connotation, but it's out of alignment, out of frequency for you. And the longer that you try to hold on to those things that no longer fit, it'll be like the equivalency of drinking spoiled milk just because you paid a lot of money for it. You may have paid a lot for it, but you're going to keep drinking it, which is going to cause you immense amount of harm, violently. That's what happens when we continue to try to hold on to, we try to suppress what no longer works. So I'm going to give you a few ways to start to really become grounded in this situation of being in the in-between. Again, you have evolved, you have gone and embarked on your glow up journey, and now you're in a different phase and you're feeling very uncomfortable. It's like growing out a haircut. When it was cute, when you first got it done, and then you start to grow and it's like, okay, it's okay still. It's still okay. And then it gets to a point where it's just like, okay, either I need to cut it or I need to like do something else and really invest in the grow out process. And so you're in that kind of the grow out phase. And now you're in a phase where you need to decide, are you going to go backwards or are you going to go forward? And I want to let you know that if you try to go backwards after being initiated into other levels, you're not going to be able to do that. So you really only have the choice of investing in the growing out phase of your journey. So I don't even like the term becoming because that sounds super passive. It is just going from one frequency level to the next. A lot of people in these spaces will say it's in the, no, you're becoming. I'm not becoming anything. I'm already that. I am just expanding and I am growing. And therefore, I'm tapping into things that have not been activated. But this phase of understanding that what no longer feels good to you, what no longer is aligned, instead of it looking at it as, I want you to reframe it. Instead of looking at it in a negative way, look at it as that it is exactly, precisely what you were needing in order for you to move. You have probably been given the wrong ruler, the wrong instrument in defining and measuring what does success look like. In our heads, we have this clean linear path. And I've mentioned on many of my past episodes that, especially for women, we do not operate in a linear, we operate in a very circular pattern motion, very cycle based. We are very lunar based in all that we are. So it is not a linear flow to get from point A to point B. Like, we do go in a circle. And I believe the circle then becomes to expand and evolve. Just like that of a baby that's in the womb, they start out as a little bitty dot, a little pea, and then they expand and grow into what then is birthed out into the world. So instead of looking at it negatively and seeing it as, oh my God, how can this be? How horrible is this? Look at that as, okay, great. I am on the right track. It's like going on a freeway. You're looking for exit 7. You've seen exit 4. Okay. Exit 5. Okay. Exit 6. Okay. 6A. All right. 7. Boom. I'm on my exit. That is what this is. Another reframe and more on the deeper level. When you are dissolving from one phase and going into the next, Western society especially has stripped all levels of ritualisticness that comes with the experience and the journey of life, and especially for women. Instead of it being like a great development, a rite of passage, we have stripped everything. Everything is commercialized. So if you do not fit into what has been prescribed and pathologized as proper, then, or if you start to feel certain aspects, you are then diagnosed with sort of depression, anxiety, some sort of something psychological because you are no longer able to stay dialed into the matrix, if you will. I want to provide a very much strong affirming that what you're feeling is not some sort of thing that you need to antidepressant it away, anti-anxiety medication away. We as a collective over medicate, especially in the Western society, because Western society's incentivization is to keep you suppressed, keep you essentially under the thumb in order for you to be managed and controlled. So when you begin, because society also understands as a collective that there is an extreme power of the mind. And so when you put your mind forth anything, that is what forth comes. You see it every day. If you're someone who has a lot of anxiety, depression about whatever is going on in your life, you will then begin to see those things. And that should show you clear evidence that you do have a lot of immense power, but it's that you don't know that you have that power, which again is by design. But in every other culture, when let's just go in for the woman, when a woman goes from her little baby age to becoming that of a woman being marked by her menstrual, there is a celebration, there is a rite of passage, there is wisdom, sage knowledge that's passed down. And then as she becomes a mother, there is additional knowledge that she's then able to tap into and is honored. And then the final phase of womanhood is to become the crone, the wise woman. And that is highly celebrated in every other culture but Western culture. It is to keep the woman constantly looking at a always outside of herself target of success And so as you evolve, especially if you're any lady listening to this and you are in your phase of final womanhood, because that can take some years to get to the end. What you're feeling is not wrong. It is exactly what you should be feeling. But collectively, our society has an incentive to keep you disconnected from that and also disconnected from the great joy that it is to be. Instead, society would prefer you to stick to always feelings that because you are getting older, you're no longer worthy. You're getting older, you're no longer valuable. This came through my mind this morning while I was getting my coffee of engaging with older women. And it used to always be, oh, well, I still got it. I still got it. That has been so programmed into us that we say it in such subtle ways, but essentially it is a activator to keep us going after the same old path. What you're feeling right now, beloved, is wonderful and is where you need to be. Now, I want to ask you a question because I like keeping your toes. And you need to answer this not later, but right now. I want you to, in your body, when you hear this question, I want you to really pick up what you're feeling. Where is it that you are trying to maintain the old ways that you no longer align with? In what ways are you still trying to hold on to that old thing? Wherever you're feeling anxiety, tension, pressure, that is where you are suppressing the new from the old. No, the new will eventually become to push forth and really push you to the new level. All right, so now we're part of the podcast where my trusty phone will be used because I have lots of notes that I want to make sure that we get into. Now, I want to break 3 conceptual lies that is often attached to this process, this journey that we are embarking on when we say, hey, I want to glow up, I want to do, and we're starting to see, or we thought was that we're going crazy, but actually is right where you should be. So the first one that I want to hit is, if this were right, it will feel better. This assumption will always keep you second guessing your divinity and your sovereignty. What feels right really isn't the right. It's what feels safe. Let me be very frank. What we're saying about, it feels right is just safety, because actually embarking on what we have pulled forth scares the hell out of us. And it would feel better if we felt better about it. But often when we are saying it doesn't feel right, we are trying to negotiate with our own divinity, and our divinity will win, and it will get our attention until you do what is you should do. So that's lie number 1, an assumption that you're carrying that really can be very damaging. Number 2, if or I should be able to explain this to people I love. This is one of those that can be very, very dicey, because when we do embark on these journeys, sometimes people that we do love, we will lose. Because again, as I mentioned earlier, you will potentially lose everything that in this first reality that you're in to get to the next. And so that could be a husband, a boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, children, hopefully of the adult version, family, friends, communities that we have once loved. And we feel that if we could explain in a way, then people will then validate what we're going through and that it'll be okay. But you have to understand that oftentimes you were only given the instruction book to what was next, and it was not for everyone to understand or co-sign. If you've worked in any sort of corporation, a lot of times decisions are made from the top down, not from the bottom up. And so you being in your divinity is coming from the top. and it flows out. And so you have to move and allow and be gracious and grateful for the time, but also be grateful and hold the expanded container for what is to come. And it can feel very painful. It can be very hard. I once had a mentee who was really hardcore in her glow up journey. I remember her calling one night crying, and she's just like, no one tells you how hard this is because I don't have any friends that I knew. I thought glowing up was going to mean I was going to get to have all the shiny new things and still have those people around me in my life. And I was pretty quiet on the phone because she was right. Most people don't talk about that, but that is part of the journey. People get to choose if they will elevate or not. And a lot of times people are okay with where they are, or their journey, that intersection is that this is the time that they're supposed to get off. And then you're going your way, they're going their way. You were together for the time, you had lessons to learn, and now they go their way, and you go yours. Sometimes they do get to come with you because that is a part of the journey and the contract, but a lot of times it's not. And we have to be grateful for what once was, but also be very grateful for what's to come. And the third lie that I want to touch on is the timeline. This is super casebook linear indoctrination in our world, especially in the feminine. We have timelines. I'm a project manager, by God's sake, and everything needs to work like clockwork. We need to be able to put a start date, end date with these milestones, and it needs to look this way. And that lets us know that these, if we hit these metrics, then this was a successful project. That is not life. And that is definitely not of the spiritual. Now, yes, you might see certain aspects, but oftentimes you will see a lot more things that you were not expecting at all. And depending on where our mind is and our frequency, that can be good or not so great. We could say that we want to start this business, but then we get laid off. We could say that we want to expand our consciousness awareness, and then we lose the very pastimes, hobbies, and friends that we once held dear to that made life worth living. The timeline is not linear. Sometimes you will have to go backwards. Sometimes you're going to go to the side street to go around some of the traffic in order for you to see different scenics that you needed to have in order for you to get back onto the main road to get to the final destination. But these lies keep you in a state of doubt, anger, and frustration. And those very traits will keep your journey hard and will also, if extended for long periods, will extend your journey into stagnation. Now, I know that that was really hard to sit with, hear, and understand. The things that I share on this channel are not things from a textbook. It's part of why I don't actually mention that I do have a master's in social work, and really did the work in that program. Because often a lot of textbook material is created by the masculine. And I, going through that journey, understood that I'm very much sensitive to hyper-patriarchal stances and insights and indoctrination. And I'm very much tapped into the feminine. So these things that I'm sharing aren't things that I discovered from a self-help book, some podcasts out there, some whatever. This has come from lived experience and having to then take this experience, really refine it in order to share with you, because I wish that I would have stumbled upon a me while I have gone through multiple journeys and initiations. It is unsettling at times, but if I look back, I can see patterns and I can see the frustration. If I only knew that, hey, this feeling of hating your job, cool, is part of the flow. And it's like, okay, well, then I just need to just maintain. I need to, detach from all of this and just focus on doing what I need to do until the next thing presents itself. And then I can move forward. Or wanting to change my look completely, on par. You're not going through a midlife crisis. This is not, you're going insane. This is actually part of the journey because, again, when you are initiation into these different levels, the you that once was what served level 2 probably may not serve level 3 the same way because what you may be doing may require something different. And so if I were to get this sort of information back then, it would have made a lot of things more enjoyable and pleasant. Now, this part might get me booed, but part of the issue that you may be feeling when it comes to people in your relationships that are pushing back on you for evolving, for this glow up. We lose people, we lose relationships. A lot of this isn't about who you're becoming that is the issue. To some degree, it is. For some people, they are feeding off of the energy that you give at this current level. So it's like essentially the food pool is drying up if you do evolve, if you do see how great you are, if you do see how fucking amazing you are. That would then mean that they would not be able to siphon energy off of you, and therefore that's a problem. Major issue. That's like all grocery stores are closing. Think about the pandemic. No toilet paper. Why? Because we're shutting down stores. Like, it's insanity. But that's part of it. And that should be, again, another great indicator of that what once was aligned wasn't necessarily aligned for your benefit, and that it is great that it is leaving you. Another part of that is not so much to do with who you're becoming. That doesn't scare them. It is that when you become what you are doing, going from this in between frequency of level 1, level 2, you doing that, when you go into different levels, you start to show a flashlight to the areas that they have chosen not to acknowledge. You are being a light because you're leaving. That pulls some space out for them, and that brings illumination into their space. And that illumination would then illuminate choices that they have made or not made that they may not necessarily want to reflect on and unpack. This is not your concern. This is not your business. This is perfectly okay. It is wonderful because this is also a gift. So as you evolve, you are giving gems and gifts everywhere you go because it is illuminating things for others, and it gives them the opportunity to decide what they want to do for themselves. It is uncomfortable for all parties. Sometimes we do life in a certain way because it's what's best for the moment. I will give an example. Let's say you are a mother and you, for the last 18 years, forsake going to create a business or pursue a career, even though you went to college for it, you did all the things, you never were able to pursue it because you had baby and you wanted to give this baby the best possible path to success in life, which was to be nourishment and being available to them. Now that they're 18, 19, they're going off to college, you now don't have anyone to focus on but yourself. And this scares you a little bit. It can make and illuminate some things like, I've only been married to this man because I wanted to make sure that my child had at least somewhat of a happy home. But now that chapter has transitioned, now I have the opportunity to really decide if this is who I want to be with. Is this who I want to live with? Is this the individual that I want to do the next chapter phase life with? And again, sometimes you might think you want that, but on the unconscious level, it's not really what you want, but it's what you feel safe with. And so allowing that space, that illumination, instead of seeing it in a negative way, see it as one of the best gifts you can ever give a person. Now, as I always love to leave practicality to you when you're listening to this podcast, because, we can get into the spiritual all day, but how you're able to practically use it is important as well. So here are some ways that you can start looking at this in between stage, this threshold, if you will. Instead of narrating it and looking at it in such a in the scarcity mind, just begin to observe what's happening. Really look at it as a way to understand yourself and understand maybe any some gems that you might be able to pull from the scenario and the situation for your next chapter. Identify those in your life who are okay with sitting with uncertainty. This is going to be very, very uncomfortable for both parties, for you and them, because again, they don't know if this means goodbye or if this is continuing. And this isn't just about intimate relationships. This is about any relationship there is. You don't need them to solve anything. You don't need them to be a thought partner into your journey. But the need for support in the physical realm is extremely important and critical in your evolution. And it requires being with people. I would highly suggest being with individuals that have also done this themselves. And so they understand what you're encountering, but also understand that there is a limit to how much they interfere. And the third one is going to be treating the discomfort as data points versus as some sort of indicator that you're off base, that you're wrong. I like to look at, I'm uncomfortable, I've done these affirmations, I've did this inner work, and now I'm feeling this insane amount of frustration. I've done that several times in my journaling. And then later, as I go through the day, I begin to feel very enraged. This is a great data point for me to know that, okay, what I embarked on with my journaling is actually working because it is now releasing all of that out of me and it has to go out somewhere. It's not just going to, a thought and it disappears. It has to pull through from the 3D out of us in the physical. So that gives me a data point to know what's what. But then also, if there's things that are actually bringing you joy, happiness, things that you are never really were interested in, now you're into, instead of looking at that as a negative thing, look at me being crazy. I've never worn makeup before. I've never been into beauty. Now I can't stop consuming beauty videos on YouTube. Instead of seeing that in the negative, look at that as, okay, this is why potentially is this happening? Where is this going? What's pulling up? Is it because I've never had the opportunity and now there's something within me that's activated that's pulling me this way? Or is it I'm trying to use this as a way to escape? Like really look at the data, look at its data, and then you can make your things accordingly. All right, now that I'm about to wrap this podcast episode up, this has been, to me, one of the more challenging ones to produce. Sometimes it is really difficult to create what the divine has put on you instead of doing what is trendy, what is palatable, what could potentially get 1 million views. Doing what has been called sometimes it's not always easy. Now, I've mentioned throughout this podcast that there was a word for what you're feeling. I mentioned it a moment ago, but the word is threshold. Essentially is why I don't believe in the whole becoming situation. You are at the door. Essentially, you're at the door. You're in the threshold of the door. Now it is going to be a matter of you deciding to go in the door. You're there. It's not about getting there. You're not on the freeway anymore. Like you're at the door. You're right outside the door. Now it is, do you step in it or do you stand out? And I'm going to say, it's kind of weird to be standing at a door, especially if the door is open. It's a little weird for you to stand at the door and not go in it. Like it will look weird. But sometimes we have to go through that weird phase to be prepared to. And sometimes the door is closed and we just need to turn it. And we have the key, we need to put it in, and then we need to turn it. Sometimes we may need to dig through our purse to find the key, but we have it. And then we need to then put it in. And it could be a complicated door, so it could be a couple of keys. Maybe it's one of these new fancy AI doors where I need to scan my face in it. Ultimately, you're at the threshold. That is what this is. The in between all of that, this is the threshold. Now, the threshold is just the beginning. You're right at the door. You have to decide to go through the door. Then as you go through the door, beginning to observe and take ownership of being in the new space. You might see things that were not that you thought it was going to be. It's like when I go into a hotel, I've seen pictures of it, but I haven't been in that exact room. Sometimes the picture is perfectly identical to the space that I'm in, and sometimes it is not. Sometimes the picture and what's reality looks like jump scare, catfished, or sometimes it can even be better, be more beyond what I could potentially conceive. But that ultimately is left to you. If this episode resonated with you, put that in the comments. As a small YouTuber, my goal is to try to elevate my content and to get engagement, and that lets the algorithm know that, hey, you like what I have to say. And there's other people who probably want to hear this tea as well. If this also was very beneficial to you, share it with a friend, like it, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends because it is very poor for you to get great information and not share it because we do not own anything in that way. But being able to share abundance means that abundance will come back. And until next time, make sure you're living your best life.